them. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to another working meeting about language completeness and consistency for Wolfram language. We have a number of topics today. Let's see how many we can get through. All right, first up, number forms.
Right, so this is a request from the Wayne team for up to 3 new, foo form functions for formatting integers as a factored form, mixed fractions, and repeating decimals.
Okay.
And so,
which we have WFRs for those things, yes?
I don't think so.
No. Yes and no. We have some, but
Recording in progress.
WFRs are really not suited for representations. They're really more suited for doing something.
Okay.
Because like as a representation, if somebody else should eat it, how you teach the rest to eat it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, how would they eat this? I mean, number form is not eaten by things.
Right. And so well, my understanding of the scope of this request is that, it'll behave like number form. So you can still refer to %, and that will be a number.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking matrix form is a good one in my opinion.
Or matrix form, yes.
Okay. Well,
and
so
maybe like if you look at papers about modular forms and such things, it would be nice, say, if factored integers, if you have a large polynomial, would do it with every integer, not just with the integer on its own.
Right. What about a rational? Should it give you a factorization of the numerator and denominator?
I would say no.
Well, hold on.
Maybe.
This is a form. This is a repeating decimal form, right? I mean, this is a repeating decimal, but it doesn't look the way that you would like it to look.
Exactly. Like for a vain audience, this is not a useful form.
Right.
It's also no longer the number. It's something totally different. And factored integer is kind of the worst case scenario because the default output form in vain is traditional form. Now you think it's a matrix. Now it lost all relation to what one is used to seeing.
Right. So, I mean, just to give a sense of this, I mean, if I do this in Wolfram Alpha, the actual form I'll get is that thing that involves, wow, where's the repeating decimal? Oh,
under the number line.
Oh, that's weird. I find it a bit weird that it's beneath the decimal approximation. In fact, it's a bit weird. Okay.
I mean, it's weird that it's below the number line. That's a bit odd.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard to know what you're looking for. Okay, so we got 2 examples here. Repeating decimal and mixed fraction. Okay. So you want forms that will simply take. So we've already got decimal form, right?
Right. Which
takes something like this. Wait a minute, what's it doing there?
Well, it won't do something very interesting with integers, right? It'll give you that as opposed to formatting it as a, as a float.
Notation.
Yep.
Okay, so I just give whereas. If I give this like this, what's it going to do? Right. Okay. So what you're asking for is something which for exact numbers would give.
Correct.
Right. And it sounded to me like it would be, well, at least for the factored integer case, it would be specifically integers and not also rationals for.
Correct.
Right. Mixed fractions and repeating decimals, I guess it would take. I mean, I guess it's not very interesting with integers, but it would take rationals.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
so
know
what
maybe.
Do you propose for the names?
Well, I guess the obvious name is factored integer form.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, of course, this is the only form we have where it might take an astronomical time to do the computation.
No,
I don't know.
No, actually, I think decimal form is much more sorry, not decimal, repeating decimal, because the periods can quickly get 10 to the 10, 10 to the 100.
No doubt, but what I'm saying is I wonder what assumptions are made in the system about the fact that that the form step is not super. I mean, like, for example, the front end probably freezes while the form is being generated.
Not any more so than it would any other step, right? It's
But it would be different from doing the factorization?
No, the difference is, for example, I've run into this with layered digraph embedding in graph theory, okay? That you think you're generating the graph and then it sits there spinning its wheel because it's in the rendering process. It's trying to do a combinatorial optimization thing for rendering.
Right, but the front end isn't going to be rendering, right? I mean, it'll eventually render something, but it's not doing the step. The problem with the graph is that it's dynamic and there's some interplay between the boxes that are generated and, the dynamic rendering. Here, the kernel is going to need to factor this. And so it'll just look to the front end like the kernel is still evaluating. And then the kernel will give it boxes, which are basically, instead of a row box with lists, it'll be a row box with some times and some superscript boxes.
Yeah, okay, fine. But so you're proposing that this is what it is, and it's the integer. I don't know why we don't just say factored form.
Because then you would expect it to work for polynomials.
Should it?
The name for the other one should be mixed fraction form, right? That makes factored integer form more parallel.
Okay. Mixed fraction form, which is to be distinguished from mixed fraction parts. So mixed fraction form.
How long have we had mixed fraction parts? I didn't even know this function existed.
Fairly recent. It's fairly recent. 2 years or something. 2019.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, there's probably some corner cases with mixed fraction form when things get very long and so on, and what do we do when it breaks a line, all that kind of stuff. But I'm sure that can be handled fairly easily.
But it cannot get much worse than the fraction itself. Subtracting integer cannot make anything worse.
Right. Okay, fair enough. But the fraction itself goes into slash form, so to speak.
Yeah.
And the issue here is, if this is like 3/1/7, that has to be, what we need is a non-breaking space character. I mean, a space-like character that means addition. I think we have one.
We do that. It's called implicit plus.
Okay, so that's what it would have in there, potentially.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So factored integer form, mixed fraction form, and now what? Recurring rational form?
I think repeating is the more commonly used.
Okay, but what should it say? Repeating rational? That's all it's for.
Yeah, well, this is where I think things break down a bit, right? Because the
Do we-
repeating is referring to the decimal
But do
representation.
we intend to support it for different bases?
We might as well. They're like base form. That's why I was backing off from repeating decimal.
Mhm.
Does decimal form support other bases?
No, because it's really only affects in exact numbers.
Okay. Well, I think we definitely need repeating, like base form, repeating.
To be real digits form. Real
I don't think it needs real. I mean, I think
Mhm.
Is that really reasonable? Repeating digits form?
The other two cases, the middle word represents the type of the input.
Yeah, I know.
So
Yeah.
that would lead to repeating
Fractional.
fraction form.
Repeated fraction or repeating fraction?
Right, but of course it's not the fraction. Well,
Yeah, it's the real digits that are repeating. It's just a fraction.
I'm just looking, various papers talk still about the repeating decimal form, but using different bases. They still keep the term repeating decimal
No.
as the name.
Are you sure repeating fraction isn't right?
I'm sure because fraction, right? There's a right base n repeating form or term. There's a base n terminal or repeating form if and only if the number is irrational, right?
Right.
But repeating radix,
Nobody would ever figure it out.
I know.
I think repeating decimal, everybody would understand, even if it was in another base.
Yeah. What do people call the digits to the right of the decimal point in a binary number?
Digits?
No, but
They call it the fractional part.
yeah,
Right?
I know, but what do they call the digits in a binary number? That's just, I guess, digits, but I mean okay, what about the decimal point? What do they call the decimal point?
The binary point?
That's the radix, isn't it? The
No.
radix point.
I never heard it called that. Never heard that.
RADIX.
I know how to spell radix.
Sorry.
All right, he's saying that
I
he's
think
never heard the decimal point referred to as a radix point.
Radix point or radix character, according to this fine place. But radix point, how weird. Oh, this doesn't know what it's talking about, I think. All right, anyway.
I mean,
We call it point.
I would say that decimal has taken on an expanded meaning beyond base 10. And
I
similarly
think so
for
too.
digit.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Oh yeah, digit, of course. Depending on what kind of creature you are. All right, I think that's fine. Repeating decimal form, factored integer form, mixed fraction form. Now, repeated decimal form might need to have some kind of option for its maximum length that it tries to search for the repeat. Or does it not need that? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I understand the question. I do not know the answer.
I don't think so much for doing the computation, but for the display. You might well say the first 10, the last 10 of the period, and then an indication how long the period is, like ... 5,470,000.
I see. That's an elided repeated.
Yeah.
So that's like, how would we state that? That's like a precision argument. I see. So it's the repeating digits form. So it's the number and the base and kind of the digits, number of digits.
But
I know. I think it's more of an option, right?
I think so too.
Right. It's like, above this, elide above this length, right? Because the period is well defined.
Yeah. I mean, like the equivalent for matrix form would be ... vertical, horizontal, and diagonal for a very big matrix with structures.
Which would be nice to have. But we don't even have that for ordinary numbers other than short, basically.
It'd be
In other words,
terrible to have
And the new root
under-
object stuff, but
What
Right.
what about the new root object stuff? Which, by the way, I hope we have a meeting to talk about soon.
No, I mean, the fact that it shows, not all the digits, it shows an approximation.
Yeah, but by the way, we do have that. Is this an LCC topic that talking about the new
We've
root
already
object?
talked about it. Other than the fact that it hasn't been implemented yet, I don't see what needs to be talked about again.
Okay, all right. You see, I'm going to keep saying that until it's implemented, because I'm going to.
Well, when when LCC
Who's
is,
got to implement it?
well, it's me, or if unless you can make somebody magically appear, but right, and it's not as if I'm sitting on my hands not doing anything. So,
Well, we need to talk about that because that really does need to get implemented. It's really unbelievably unusable right now.
I disagree with that statement. It's not
Every
optimal.
single time. Every
It's-
single time I
it's
try and
not-
use it, I can't use it. So, every single
Well,
time, every single
Well,
time.
and everything, I have not had an issue with it.
Have you actually used it for real things?
Yes.
Okay, so what do you do with this? I want to know, what are these polynomials? How do
Okay.
I find out?
Control Shift I.
Well, yeah, percent input form. You hover over them.
Really? That's the best we can do? I mean, I just want to know, I want to get this
You-
out. I want to copy out the number. How do I do that? Copy out I mean, you're saying if I do input form, okay, I agree, that's perfectly reasonable. What's there? But how, I mean, I just want to get this thing out.
First, I mean,
Does that work or is it atomic? I would have
it's not
assumed it was-
atomic. I'm
Okay. Well, I had assumed it was atomic, which probably didn't help. Okay, anyway. All right. Okay. Let's go back to this. So we need something which is like a max items thing, but it's a, where else do we have those?
Makes repeated digits.
No, I understand, but if we want to generalize that to matrices and things, we might as well have the same option.
I'm not sure that's completely sensible, especially if you wanted to combine matrix form and
Oh, I see.
and
Well, no,
this
but you'd
form.
have two different wrappers for that.
Right, but you would have, but if they both have the same option, one will win over the other, I think.
Well,
Maybe.
I don't think so. No, it'll
I
just.
mean, wouldn't the option
I
be
mean,
scoped to the
if you
wrapper?
have if you have a number form of, if you have a number form of a decimal form, they take the same options, whichever one is the inner wrapper.
Yeah, I understand, but the point here is that they're orthogonal things because the matrix knows that it is being told to elide rows and columns, whereas the number knows that it's being told to elide digits.
But if it's the same option name, I don't see how it distinguishes
a
between.
problem. I don't understand why that's a problem. I mean, it's going to say something like,
I mean,
because it'll go up to each tree and see, okay, here.
No, I mean,
Oh,
Itai,
well.
it'll be like nesting things that take image size.
No, but things that take image size, each one of them will takes it on its own, right?
Yeah, this is what these would do. I mean, this is max items in matrix form. This is max items in number form.
Right, but that's not image there, right? That's matrix, and right. Well, maybe it's okay, but I think
it's okay.
but it's very strange that, right, the image size only wins, right, Brad, in your example, right, if each one of those took an image size, right, the image size would only apply to, right, that outer image size doesn't apply to the number form.
For once, I think you're confused. Okay, I think it's pretty obvious that this here,
Okay, Stephen, can you do a quick example?
yes,
Do panel of foo image size goes to 10, image size goes to 20. We might need to increase those numbers, but
right. And the point is that that outer panel, right, that outer image size is the image size applied to the whole thing, right? It doesn't jump inside to the inner panel. Whereas, right, that single number form of matrix form can have a whole bunch of numbers inside of it.
I understand your point. I don't think it's semantically ambiguous. I'm saying because the max items is part of number form, therefore it's referring to the number form, whereas the max items here is part of the matrix form, and so it's referring to the matrix form.
Possibly.
Okay, but in any case, it's not even obvious we want the same option for both of them. And why do you guys want to not want to present it like a precision option?
What do you mean presented like a precision option?
Well, I mean, present it as an argument, right?
Because it doesn't make sense as an independent thing, right? The actual value, right? It only comes into play if the specific number happens to be sufficiently long, right?
Sure, but that would just say the maximum number of digits. Right, just like precision. I mean, it would say 10 or something, and that would be the thing that would determine when it would start eliding. And if it's infinity, it never elides.
I suppose. I guess we normally use these argument things as sort of cutoffs, not as, right, it truncates at that point. It doesn't, well, certainly in
in number form, it doesn't. In number form, it is used merely to control the display number of digits.
Well, it won't, right? It won't show you more than that number of digits, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, it doesn't show you then. Well, that right. It's not going to show you if it doesn't have that. Well, you can't. Right, no, do something more interesting, like number form of 3.4 comma 7.
Okay.
Right. It doesn't show you.
Yeah.
What's that?
Nor with this. If there aren't that number of digits, it's not going to show you any elision. But in this case, if I said this, whatever it is, this, huge number of digits here, and let's say I say 20 or something here, that's going to show 20 digits. It's going to truncate.
Right. It's truncating. That's what I'm saying. Right.
In the other case, you need accuracy. You'd say 7,8. 3.4, 7,8.
Right. I'm just saying it's a bit weird because, right, in number form, we're truncating, and here we're sort of, well, I guess we're truncating from the middle.
Truncating, yeah. Happens to be from the middle. I think it's directly analogous. And this number, this precision number, would be the number of digits you actually show.
Mm-hmm. Right, after the decimal point, I presume.
Right, but are there transients? Let's see. There are, aren't there? Before you hit the
yeah, that's a right. So I guess it's the question of the repeat.
So it's got an accuracy issue as well as a precision issue.
So something I'm thinking about is that this is going to be very close to decimal form itself, and it will require similar number point, various things, options. And decimal form is not doing anything at the moment on rationals. So I wonder whether decimal form could be upgraded to do something on rationals.
I don't think we should. I think we should be repeating decimal form. I think it's a sufficiently bizarrely different thing. And I think it's going to have a lot of potential hair to do with the way the overbars are drawn and all kinds of stuff like this. I think it should be qualitatively similar. N-digit precision should be with n repeating digits, and then n comma f would be something which also controls the number of digits before number of transient digits.
Mm-hmm.
But these various options of digit blocks, number signs,
Yeah,
etc.
we need those. We need
those are
those.
needed. Yeah.
Same as the other function. All right. Anything else on these functions?
Well, I guess the question is, what's the priority, and who can we have work on this?
I don't know, but that's not particularly for this meeting. I mean, this seems like something that should happen. This, insofar as we have an ILD operation, this seems like a quintessential ILD type project. So I would recommend somebody in that orbit.
We can have a look. Decimal form was easier because it was directly a form of number form. This will require some extension.
Although that code exists in Wolfram Alpha, right?
Well, not the code actually. I mean, maybe a little bit of that code, but right, we're gonna want to do this and see if we're going to make it into a proper form.
Why?
Because we want it to behave like a form, like all the other forms.
I think that should be looked at. I think that's not obviously correct. I don't
Oh,
know.
but if it's not a form, then it right.
No, it needs to be a form, but I understand that. But the hook to make it a form, let's not get too deep into these implementation details. The hook to make it a form is independent of the actual execution of the function.
Yeah, so let's start with Danny. He wrote decimal form, and I think he can do something here.
Okay.
Okay. Triple at, a name for triple at. Why do we want this? The reason we want this is because I find myself using triple at a lot. And I just think it's obscure in the code, and I don't even remember what. So triple at is apply at level 1, right?
Yep.
As opposed to at level 0.
Right. If you
That's not what I mean. I mean this.
right. If you held that first input and looked at its full form, you would see that it is precisely apply at level 1.
Okay. So I'm just asking for a symbol form of this, just like we have replace repeated and things for / dot, even though you could get that by an argument, as you can here. I'm just asking.
No, you can't. Replace repeated is most definitely not. Neither replace repeated, none of replace repeated.
Oh, I'm sorry, MapApply.
Replace all.
MapApply is an example.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I don't use very often, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's kind of a useless function, to be perfectly honest. It's very rare that you want something to apply to every single part of.
Yeah, I think it's more relevant if you're doing mathematical simplification and things like that, where you have a function that you want to just dust things with.
It's very useful if you have a piece of code that you want to analyze without any evaluation. First, you map all about everything, and then you slowly take it apart.
Right. Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, look, I think MapApply is the obvious name for this. Am I confused? Is that what you would get if you said, am I confused if I say map apply F onto?
No, that should be the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I think it should be called. And that's what multiple other people have suggested.
Okay.
Any objections?
All right. Do we change the parser to use this new symbol name, or do we just add this as a new symbol that can?
I think it'd be nice to change the parser, but if that turns out to be super hard, I suppose we could punt on it. I would prefer to change the parser.
It doesn't make
But you just dropped out. We can't hear you anymore. Oh,
sorry, Mike.
yeah.
Okay, Danny, we can hear you. We can hear you sighing.
You want to say something?
Am I back?
Yes.
You are.
Okay. Where were we with at? Oh, yeah, I think it's been a bit of a problem that we've had things like divides and minus or subtract that parse one way, but have internal semantics that are a bit different and short circuit. I think if we're going to call this, call this an infix for MapApply, it would be nice to parse to that.
Okay, fine. Actually, you're right. You're right. We have had trouble with those things that don't parse in the most obvious way. I think we have. I think there's a plan for someone else to get involved with the parser, so perhaps we have a good implementation path there. All right. Any objections to this?
So does it have a third argument, or it just
No,
always
No.
operates at level 1?
always level 1.
Okay.
I think so.
Just like map always.
And with an operator form, right?
Definitely.
Mhm.
Definitely, the operator form would be very useful. And actually, that's one reason. That's one of the many reasons why I wanted this. Now that I think about it, I was going to make a comment about something here, which was about the analysis of when one has to put in hash signs and when one doesn't have to, and whether there are additional plumbing operations that are similar to. I mean, I'm finally, the years after we introduced them, I'm finally starting to use @* fairly routinely. I still don't use /* routinely. Do other people here? That's a big silence.
Yeah, not routinely, no.
Okay. But I mean, my question is, there are things where I write some piece of code and then I realize, oh my gosh, I've got to put hash signs in here. I can't just have it be the pure symbolic head. And I have been meaning to try and analyze when that happens. What causes that to happen? The other very nasty transition is when I realize I've got 2 @ signs and I have to name, I have to name the function, name the arguments. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Okay.
It depends how many arguments your function has.
No.
No, yeah, you mean that you've got a pure function inside a pure function, and so
Yeah.
one of them needs to be an explicit function instead of a hash ampersand.
Yep, that's what I mean.
Okay.
So I mean this, and then I say I'm going to change that to be this. Let's say I want that instead of that to be, well, if it's f of hash ampersand, ABC, that's all good because it's shielded by another level of ampersand. But if I want this to be, I want to make a this thing, I want to make that. Okay, I want to say A there, and obviously I could do that with function A. Blah 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 here, right? But what's happened is I've got just hash +1, and then I realize I need to put in this A thing. But then actually this is sort of the wrong way around. I mean, let's say I've got, you guys get the point. Yes, you get the point, or do I need to give another example?
No, we know the cases.
Right.
Mhm.
So my question is, what can we do in situations like this? Is it a user assistance story, or is there something else we could do?
Well, I'm still not entirely clear on what problem you're trying to solve. Right?
Okay,
I mean,
the problem I'm trying to solve-
this can always be solved by adding an explicit function wrapper, right?
No. There's no problem in actually writing the code. Okay.
Okay.
There's no problem in there is a version of the code that is absolutely fine, no problem. The issue is when you are interactively composing code, the question is having to go in and rewrite a piece of code because you were using hash signs, and now you realize, oh, you've got 2 conflicting hash signs. You have to explicitly name the arguments.
A 2-arg slot.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Like the slots from a certain layer work together.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, I don't think that's really going to help anything because unless we already have. Look, we've taken the syntax for this. We've taken the syntax for #2 and so on, right? the question is there any syntax we can imagine? Let me give you an example. Hash signs are like pronouns. Okay, in English, right? You can say, the cat which ate the fish, it was happy. No, actually, that's a very bad example, because that is precisely an example of of the collision of two hash signs. It's a collision of two pronouns. Right? Now, in English, for example, this is the famous gendered pronouns story. We have this hack with plurals and genders where we can distinguish because we have different pronouns for the plural and the gendered version, right? Yes, you understand?
Yes, it's like saying his brother and his cousin. You don't know his whether it refers to the original one or the second one.
No, but if you say, yes, right, but that's the collision. But if you say,
his sister and her
boy,
cousin.
No, the boy chased the girl and she ran fast, then you know that the she refers to the second element there, right?
Right.
Yep.
Because you're using that tag, you're using that gender agreement thing there, which of course has been broken in modern times, but that's a different story. That has been the traditional hack for essentially doubling in a first approximation. And many languages like French and Italian, I think, have gendered names for lots of things. Right? In English, it's down to I don't even know if it's even still true that ships are generally female, and most objects are it, so to speak. But I mean, you see what I'm saying? There's a hack for doubling the number of pronouns or increasing the number of pronouns with this kind of tagging. We do not have that hack. And that's probably just as well. There's probably no easy way to do it. I mean, one could imagine a hack where you go, triple hash sign, and that represents, this is a hack. It's a bad idea. And that represents a
Right. I mean, I think any solution would involve you going and finding all of the existing slots and adding the tag to them, which I suppose maybe could be a user assistance thing, but it just seems
no. It definitely needs to be a user assistance thing. The user assistance thing should be to replace it with a named variable, right? That you should be able to transform a thing that has hash signs in it to a named variable, right? So that I should be able to easily go hash +1 here, right? And just say, select that. Actually, why not? Maybe it just goes in here somehow. Select that.
I think it goes into the toolbar, not into
Yeah,
the
okay,
context
fair
menu.
enough, fair enough.
But yes, I mean, having something where you select the function and you say,
put a name in here.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably what I want. But that's probably the right way to do it. Because that's the case where you get messed up, is when you're trying to put that function inside and it isn't properly delimited. And then if that can be transformed into, the named form, that will be just fine.
This is not just hashes, right? Because if you have various functions and they all use the variable x, it's the same problem.
It's the same problem. That's right. So it's rename this pure function to use, and maybe you could also rename it down to use just a hash sign.
Right.
I think we'll have to be smart about what's highlighted versus not, because in the example below what you have highlighted, it can become unclear if the hash plus f of hash is like, if you only highlight f of hash ampersand, do you want that then to become the function, which I think is what you
Yes.
originally intended?
Yes,
Right.
yeah, that's what I intended.
Which may be different than the precedence. That would otherwise
That's
exist.
correct. It might be different from the precedents. No, I agree with that. Ethan is suggesting a notation like that. I mean, I think this may get just utterly obscure. I mean, there's, you know, a notation that we haven't used, and I don't know whether we can, whether we want to use any of these kinds of things as subscripts. Perhaps that's just utterly obscure. I think the toolbar sounds like the right place for this, probably. Can we make sure this gets communicated to the toolbar makers?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Should we go on? Deleting columns from arrays.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's horrendous. And why doesn't this work? I mean, it seems like it should work.
Okay, well, it doesn't work because it was never implemented. Right. I mean, right. Originally, right, when extract, delete, and whoever I'm forgetting at the moment were introduced, right? They were designed to eat the output of position, and position would never produce anything other than lists of integers.
But
And
if I go, wait a minute, if I go 3,2 here.
Right, so that will work.
Okay. So I have no idea why all, 3 wouldn't work. Isn't it consistent to have it work?
I agree that it would. The point is, again, that, you know, we need resources to be
Okay. That's not our goal in this meeting.
Okay. Then tell me what is the meeting, right? Because, you know, LCC.
This is a meeting to try and do design.
Okay, fine. Well, first, yes, but again, tell me what meeting I need to be at, because, you know, we keep making all sorts of design decisions here, and one quarter of me cannot implement all of them, right?
Right. So, but that's not what should be happening. I mean, this is presumably something for, I don't know who deals with this, Rob Knapp or somebody like that. I don't know, but it's not what I can't help with that. It's not what this meeting can usefully do.
Well,
okay, so that's a separate discussion that, you know.
All right, well, tell me where that discussion should take place.
Not here.
You could.
We can't hear you, Danny.
Could throw it.
Okay, we hear you.
Into ILD, maybe.
That's where it should go, I would think, unless it requires some deep core thing with packed arrays and so on.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what the distribution of resources is for these things. This is not the right meeting to discuss that.
Okay.
Okay. And I don't think particularly, I agree, this is more of an ILD thing. And, you know, it certainly doesn't, I would have thought you would not be my first choice of a person to implement this, not because you couldn't do it, but because it just doesn't seem like a good use of your time.
Right. And I agree with that assessment, but
right. So
well, first of all, you know, the design portion was, you know, that do we all agree that this needs to be done?
Yes, and the answer is yes, right. And the second part, which is not for this meeting, is who gets to do it. And I agree with Danny that it is an ILD type project.
Okay.
Okay, but do we all agree that it's a good idea?
I do. So. Yeah, I think this is a missing hole.
Fine. That's what LCC is about, is the design. I was going to say the design of holes, but it isn't. It's the design of things to fill holes.
Yes, it's the locating of holes.
Right. Okay. Functions on symbols.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a mess, as you can tell by the fact that there's this ginormous table in there, which started with, there were some complaints from users about, what's documented and what's not documented. And so and I have to thank Ian, who did a lot of the work here, of sort of going through all of these functions and figuring out so if you see nothing in that box, that means it's not implemented. And if you do see something, that means it's implemented, and sort of the most visible place where that's actually documented. So for example, the fact that you can do context of the string symbol to get the context if it exists, that's only documented in an error message, which is, crazy.
Yes.
Right. So there's.
By the way, that's probably the way it's been for more than 30 years, because I think that's that's a very old piece of functionality.
Right. And so right. So I think there's some low-hanging fruit, which is.
Let's just ask what we want, and maybe you're saying that underneath.
Right. And so I'm saying things we want, and then some more open questions. So one thing I would like is to sort of completely de-document the fact that hold pattern of blank symbol can be used in attributes and definitions, because these functions are already hold all. So
okay, can I push back about that for a second?
Okay.
What if you have a list of symbols, and you want to hold the list of symbols, and you want to map these functions over that list? Let's say you want to do a select on a list of symbols. Now, you're going to say, well, I could do that with strings.
Right. Which I think is the much more useful thing, right? Because then you're not creating the symbol if you don't have to.
I kind of agree with you, I think. Anybody want to disagree with this?
I'll agree with it and say that I think options should work with strings.
Well, it can't, because of a very old design decision where options of strings means look for the stream named
oh, that's bonkers. That's
with
bonkers.
that file name.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's bonkers.
So you can do options on stat out even.
Oh, for God's sake, that's compatibility with a teletype.
Yeah.
Which of course people still use.
Yeah.
That's annoying.
Yeah.
Is that functionality we think we might be able to deprecate, or is it really going to be, what will be the failure case?
Right. Well, I guess, so I guess if we did this.
It's horrifying. Look at that.
Right. So it's very prominent. So I think if we added support for string symbols, it would have to be, happen after we first try to look up the stream name. But I would certainly worry if we tried to. Yeah, and I don't know.
Well, but this is only something relevant to options on an open stream, right? It's not going to go searching your file system.
Correct.
I wonder whether it works with notebooks as well on an open notebook.
If you give it a notebook object, you can get the options of the notebook object, but I don't think on just a name it will.
Okay, but the stream would be better to have the stream object there, options of a stream object, right?
Yeah, yes, input stream or output stream.
Right. So maybe what we should do is a slow deprecation of this feature. Maybe what we should do is start generating a message, but have it work. If there is a stream with that name, have it work, but slowly message that and say you should use the stream object. And then in the fall through case, well, what does it do if the stream object doesn't exist?
I believe it gives you an error message that
wonder what it
there's no,
returns.
it can't find a stream by that name. Oh,
What the
no.
heck is that? That's just crazy.
Well, I think that's sort of fall through behavior of like, if you give it a symbol that, you know, has no options to find.
Right, because any symbol that's here will already have been, I mean, unless it's in unless it was in a string, it will already have been
Created.
right. Okay, that behavior above with the options of a string is crazy, in my opinion. I'd like to explore deprecating that, generating a message in that case.
Yeah, I mean, I would worry a little bit about backward. I would certainly worry about backward.
No, I agree, but we
compatibility.
we can continue to return that result, but we can generate a message.
Right. Yeah, and right, I just, you know, for you know, completeness, if you do options of, you know, stat out, you'll actually get the, which you could also do as an output stream, right? But, you know, and that is something I know is used in code. So that's, and so maybe we just special case, you know, stat out and stat error, because we know those are the things which are most.
Yeah, and those are not, I mean, the only confusing thing is if you have a symbol named stood out, you know, who wins. And we could special case those particular things.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think if we handled stud out and stud error and no other streams, that would be 99.99999% of the
I don't think it's so many nines, but I would give it 4 nines at most.
Okay.
And then we would generate a message, and then if there was in fact a symbol by that name, we would go and find the options for the symbol.
Mm-hmm.
If there was the cases are, if there is no if there's no stream and no symbol, we generate a message. If there is a stream and no symbol, we generate a message but return the result.
Right.
Okay, let's look at the rest of this table. Okay, I mean, I think you're wanting to just remove the hold pattern case.
Yes.
Do we have any idea why that was introduced? Is there something that returns hold pattern?
Don't think anything returns hold pattern. I mean, we do have some precedent of, I mean, obviously, besides the pattern matching functions, I think we do have some pattern, you know, some precedent of non-hold all functions, which take hold pattern as sort of a poor man's, you know, unevaluated.
Yeah.
But I think yeah, I don't remember. I mean, right, this was done a long time ago, like in the version 2 or version 3 era. Well, I guess let's see, hold pattern I think was new in V2, so maybe that's when that was done.
If there are commit messages, we should look at them.
Yeah. I think it was not super. I did take a look at the history, and I don't remember finding something particularly interesting, but that doesn't mean that I couldn't make a second pass and try to learn something again.
Well, hold pattern and definition basically is what we're
right. So yeah, and then there are a couple of other things which I think are sort of
wow, hold pattern does not appear in my, let's see, it does not appear in my email archive until 1995.
Okay, so maybe it was V3 that it was introduced, right? Because it was, right, there was the old literal, which was both hold all and, you know, meant, right. And then it was split into 2 symbols, verbatim, which just meant, you know, treat this literally, and hold pattern, which meant don't, you know, don't let the thing evaluate and match against the unevaluated thing.
That's my recollection of the history.
Okay,
those two have gone.
Why would we have put definition? I bet we had a reason to do that. So let's see if I can find it. Let's see, this is in. No, what I'm finding here is stuff which has those two functions. Let's see, definition and context. Unfortunately, I'm mostly just finding lists of functions. It's not really helping very much. No. It's all browser category lists. Yeah.
I'm curious if, and I don't have a V2 book handy, but I'm wondering if
Look, I've got one.
If maybe this is some holdover from the literal days that it was.
Let's take a look. Let's take a look. We're looking at V2, and we want to know.
Did attributes, you know.
Is that the one I should look up?
Yeah.
I think this is online. I don't know why, but I'm looking at a paper version because it was easier to pull down. Attributes of literal
worked.
Right. So that's probably why.
So it was grandfathered over from that.
Right.
And that probably even worked in V1.
Mm-hmm.
I see. So we just decided because literal worked, we would make hold pattern work.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if attributes worked.
Right. And I'm certainly not suggesting that we remove the functionality. I just think there are more useful things to document, like the string form.
Yeah, I agree. Which is not documented right now. Oh, well, I will tell you something. It wasn't in V1. That was added in V2. That attributes of literal was added in V2.
Okay, right. And the commit history doesn't go back to it goes back to sort of near the end of V2, right? I think it's the commit history goes to like 2.1 or 2.2. So unless it's in your email archive, I don't know how to research the history of that decision.
To put literal into
attributes.
Let's take a look. I'll just see if I can pull something up. I'm not optimistic because those are such common words. My gosh. Well, I don't know. There might be something here. Hold on. This is, who knows? I mean, this is a piece of mail. Oh no, that's literal and condition added 10/24/90. Hard to tell. That seems like a different thing.
Yeah.
But when would this have been? This would have been probably, no, this is around 1990. This would have been happening. PM symbol head strips off some, who knows. Well,
yeah, this seems to be very deeply in the pattern matcher and not so much about the connection to attributes.
Okay, all right. So we don't know, but I agree with you. I think we could dedocument it.
Okay.
Okay, but then so making all of these like down values work with the quoted symbol name, with the string symbol name seems sensible to me.
Yeah, I think that's both obvious and and probably I could be wrong because it's not like I know the details of these functions off the top of my head, but I think this would be pretty straightforward to implement.
Okay. Now there's the single list case seems pretty obvious. The nested list case seems not so clear.
Right, and we're not sort of explicitly documenting. I think implied means that there may be an example. What does implied mean? Or
in the first instance, it's because the function's listable.
Oh, okay.
And information, it's implied because it's listable in sort of one of its arguments.
Yeah, and your audio is truly terrible. Sorry, but go ahead. Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So right. So attributes is literally listable, which you know the other guys can't be, right, because they take two arguments and you know
Right.
Right. The second argument is literally a list of things. So yeah. So I think we probably don't really care, but I just thought I would bring that up.
Right. I wouldn't document anything other than the pure one level list.
Okay.
Okay, now next to string patterns.
Right. So the things that currently, like clear and whatnot, they take strings which are wildcards, you know, with the old @ which only matches lowercase letters and whatnot. Right. But they don't support, you know, string expression or
which they should.
Right.
But the point is that the other things, like for example, down values, it's going to be confused because clear returns nothing. I mean, in modern times, it might return a success or something like that, but clear returns null, doesn't it? I think so.
Yes. Yes, clear returns null.
Right.
Protect and non-protect return the symbols that they actually modified. But
okay. But the main point here is that how does protect, if protect, for example, has a wildcard, does it always return a list even if there's only a singleton?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So wildcard means it's always going to return a list.
Right. So yeah, let me just double check that I'm not lying. But if I say protective F, yeah, it returns a list containing F. And if you
protect of quotes F even without a wildcard.
Well, I used the symbol F, but I presume that the string F would behave similarly. Yep.
Okay. All right. So the point that I'm making is down values of F would normally just return the down values list, not a list of the down values list. See what I'm saying? So if we made that a wildcarded thing, we would have incompatible return types.
Right, and that's why I did not suggest that we add the strings to those guys. I think the real questions are things like definition and full definition, which they format as like things that you typed in, but they're returning the string. They basically return unevaluated and just format. But
yeah, then I think that they should, allow the wildcards. I don't see why they shouldn't.
Okay.
I would not use wildcards for things like all those things at the top down to context.
Exactly. That down to context. Yep, that's exactly what my thoughts exactly. So unless somebody disagrees with the two of us, I think.
Well, now what about information? What does information do?
Information essentially behaves like names, right? If it looks, if you give it a string, and I think unlike
but names is always going to return a list,
right? And so it will return a. Oh, Nick is not in this meeting, but I think it returns a list of information objects. But let me double check that. Information of F star. Oh no, it returns right. It returns the thing that that guy. Right, and then you clear right. So it's still an information data object, but it's an information data object.
Oh, wow, it's a complicated, weird thing. I don't know. I never looked inside.
Right.
Might
And
be
the
useful
point
thing
the
to
point is
store.
you can
Yeah.
extract things, right? Well, you can click on those things to get the actual information thing printed, and you should be able to also, you know, be able to extract things. Oh, maybe you can't. I think that's a small limitation, but
All right, but basically what's happening here is that information is returning some structured object. So it's not just returning a list or a singleton, it's returning some elaborate thingy. So I
right,
think
right in both cases. So like if you did %48, the information of plot of down values, you know, that will actually extract information. I guess we did not implement the sub values for the multiple symbol case, which seems like an oversight. You needed the capitalize the V.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think this seems sensible. Anything else we need to discuss about these?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. Nice to clean up. All right, quickly, let's take.
I don't think this is. So I'll tell you what this is, but given that it's after 5 o'clock, I'm not sure we should be digging into this. So basically, there are a few. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong here, but it's just working with Ian on some of the tree documentation and tree implementation. I noticed there are sort of differences where like extract behaves differently than I might expect. Tree extract behaves differently than I might expect based on my experience with extract, which maybe is the correct thing to do, but it's just a little weird. And I thought it would be
Can
useful
Ian justify himself here?
I mean, I could justify the decisions we made, but I agree with Itai. This is a longer discussion.
Okay, you are confident. I mean, we discussed this at length, did we not?
We're not doing anything like obviously wrong, but there are some
Yeah.
subtle things that get done with expressions that don't get done with trees.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, this is open discussion, and
right, okay.
you know,
Well,
I would like to give it the. Like I said, I don't know that there's anything wrong, but I think it's useful to go through the and I'm bringing this back with Ian's permission. He agrees that there are things worth discussing. That
well, fine. Can we make sure we actually have examples next time for this?
There are examples. If you open up the bullet points, see the little opener things. Each one of those text summaries opens into related examples. So.
Okay, I will make a comment for Ian. Okay, this is, as you say, too complicated for us to jump into right now. Comment for Ian. I was using trees yesterday, and the thing that I really want is just a plain, I want to have a good way, like I have trees which have come from expressions, and I want to just be able to have, colored nodes and things for the different operators in the middle of the tree and colored nodes for the different leaves and so on. I could not figure out how to do that. How do I do that?
Are you wanting like a style function?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to take a tree, I want to take a generic tree. Let's say I do this. Let's say I say groupings of, A, B, A, F arrow 2. Okay. I got two little trees there, okay? And so now I say expression tree. Okay, lovely. Now I want those trees to not have the explicit AB. I just want dots basically for those. I don't want to explicitly display those things in the tree. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if I say,
you want to specify a different label? Or do you want to change the shape of the node?
No, I don't want a label there. I just want the node to be minimal there. So if I say if I say expression tree
Just do tree
of this thing, can I give it
just
now?
Do tree of the tree, right?
Yeah, okay. But so now if I say tree element label arrow, I finally learned how to do this, all arrow none, right? Then I get that, which is okay. But what I want to do is I want to color the F's one color, I want to color the A's and B's different colors and so on. How do I do that?
Based on the content, not on the position, is what you're saying.
Yes, based on the content.
Okay, so then I think we would need something like tree element label function, which you have proposed.
Okay, which
Like
was already
that
proposed.
that determines the label based on what the data is.
Right, you can give patterns for positions and
Right.
and color based, like, so you could color all the leaves based on.
How do I do that? How do I do that?
It's tree.
Well, you need to do tree position and have a pattern and get a list of positions.
I'm not liking it. I mean,
Can't you just say like tree element style goes to list underscore?
There's no pattern to give you the leaves.
Oh, there isn't. Yeah.
so I mean, if I did
Why
this,
don't you have -1?
if I do this,
Well,
and I say vertex
probably these options should take arbitrary position specs, and then you would be able to say like tree level -1 goes to red.
in tree, yes, but in tree graph, am I able to tell it to use? Oh no, I can't, because this is, otherwise it would go to the wrong thing. It has to have not only, it has to have both the payload and the it has to give the tree element position there, otherwise these things will collide into the same elements.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's probably what I have to do. I have to turn it into a graph and then pick out and then do something which is a pattern on the vertex names.
That would work.
Okay. All right. I mean, it's not the best thing. And I really think that in handling trees, the thing that I'm not happy with is the fact that they keep on thinking that the elements of these trees should be independently meaningful. And that's not what I'm doing. I'm enumerating gazillions of trees, and all I want is the shape of the tree. See what I'm saying?
Yep.
But I want a little bit more tagging information, because they're like leaves that are two types and so on. All right. Anything else we should cover today? Nope. Okay. Well, thanks much, everybody. Thanks to folks on the live stream, and see you another time.